Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. Rangers beat the Capitals, final score 7-3 in their final game before the holiday break. And the Rangers explode for 5 goals in the third. One of them being an empty net goal, but still down 3-2. Rangers have shown the ability this season, unlike last, to be able to come back when down in the third period, going into the third period. So, like I've said, look, I don't think that this is a playoff team at the end of the day, but they have, whether it's good or whether it's bad, they've certainly, kind of hung around, really except one stretch where I think it might have been a 4-game losing streak. Other than that, they've really traded off wins and losses, for the most part. And they haven't totally, become unglued, even though it felt like maybe they could at times. I mean, look, first 40 minutes were not good by the Rangers, specifically the second period. First period was all right, very low event. Rangers were actually leading after the first. The Rangers gave up 3 goals in the second. And you couldn't feel overly confident going to the third. But look, Rangers were simply the better team, not just the 5-0 goal differential, but just in general. The Rangers were better than Washington. And look, Rangers are dealing with their own injuries, most notably Adam Fox and JT Miller. But for Washington, they were without Tom Wilson due to illness. So, of course, that's a major factor here. Rasmus Sandin is out with injury, one of the, more important defensemen on the Washington Capitals. But Rangers have really, by and large, done the job on the road. It's kind of funny that, you think about the Rangers are 14-16-1 on the road, and they've been, obviously that speaks for itself. And they've actually lost, at Calgary and at Nashville in regulation on the road. So they what it means is they really have some high quality wins against good opponents away from Madison Square Garden. Rangers improve overall to 19-16-4 on the season. And now they'll have a little bit of time off and they'll stay on the road. They won't be far from home. They'll be going to take on the Islanders. I'll actually be at that game. It'll be my third game of the season. So far, not overly promising, 0-1-1 with 1 goal each, which is, again, kind of what you'd expect. Rangers most times don't score, but in this game, like I said, 7 goals. Really, most notably, Taylor Raddysh gets 2 goals and an assist, and a couple of, he scores the first goal of the game. He gets the tying goal in the third period against his former Washington Capitals squad. He was on the Capitals last year. Did a nice job for Washington last year. Nothing crazy by any means, but, played 80 games on a team that had the most points in the Eastern Conference. And Vincent Trocheck, he gets 2 goals and an assist as well. And for him, his goals maybe not quite as impactful. One of them was a big one, gave him a 2-goal lead in the third. The other one was after they already got an empty net goal. It made it 7-3. But yeah, like, getting some points up and down the line. Will Cuylle had a goal and 2 assists. His goal was a power play goal in the second period. Alexis Lafrenière gets the game-winning goal on a tip in, on a shot by Artemi Panarin. So Lafrenière making a contribution. Again, it's hard to feel good about Lafrenière, but hey, you'll take it when he can, score a goal, especially in that situation. Basically midway through the third period after the Rangers had just tied it up. So, yeah, look, they did respond in the third period. Second period was ugly. First period wasn't great, but they were able to find a way against a, divisional opponent in the Washington Capitals, a team that they had lost to by a score of 1-0 very early in the season. As far as the lineup goes, on defense, it's what you'd expect. Urho Vakanainen back as a healthy scratch. And for the forwards, the guys who were out due to illness were back, Gabe Perreault and Matt Rempe. Now, on Gabe Perreault, this is pretty crazy. And a lot of it, on the one hand, credit given. On the other hand, I think it's somewhat coincidental. The Rangers are 6-0 with Gabe Perreault in the lineup this season. And he actually, look, I think he has a goal and 3 assists. He's been fine. Like, he hasn't been bad. He's been okay. Like I think for Perreault, I'd be fine with him getting time in Hartford, but I'm also, look, Rangers are desperate for offense. If he can hold his own, get some good experience, then that's, then I don't have an issue with that either. And so, believe it or not, the main healthy scratch was Connor Sherry. Brett Berard was as well. They actually called up Berard. JT Miller was placed on IR. It doesn't really change his timeline. It wasn't LTIR, just regular IR. So again, for him week to week, we'll see. To me, the earliest that you could expect JT Miller back, if everything went totally right, would be the Winter Classic on January 2nd. And even that does feel like a stretch to me, but you never know. Maybe he's compromised. And yeah, as far as Adam Fox, I think I'm hoping for it because I'll be there, but I think it's unlikely. Maybe that Islander game, the next game. I think Fox you'll see back sooner than Miller, which again isn't really much of a. I think it's a pretty obvious statement at this point. But yeah, as far as Sherry though, which look, glad he was out of the lineup. I like because they could have went a number of different directions. What I will say though, as far as looking ahead, don't be surprised if he's back in there for Brennan Othman. So Brennan Othman didn't have a great game. The one line that really, because really the top three lines had their moments of, playing well. I don't know. To be fair, I didn't really like Panarin's manager Lafrenière. I didn't think it really had a great game, but when they needed to get a big goal, they got it. I thought at different points the Trocheck line and the Laba line played well at different points, and there was some line juggling going on within that. But it was that fourth line, Othman was kind of victim. Igor to blame as well, but the third goal by the Capitals, Othman kind of loses his guy. He played less than 8 minutes. He did draw a penalty. He did get involved in some, sort of non-hockey stuff where, getting under players' skin and things like that. But, all's to say, don't be surprised. And I would almost expect Sherry in and Othman out, but we'll see. Maybe that won't be the case. But, yeah, everything else kind of as expected, when you kind of look at the ice time distribution, it wasn't one of those crazy heavy. I guess what does stand out is, Gavrikov technically, like he played less than Will Borgen. It wasn't heavy on the Gavrikov Schneider side of things. It was definitely more evenly played out between the three pairs. And look, when Fox comes back, the likely thought is that Scott Morrow would be the one that not only comes out a lot, but probably gets sent down. And so, Fox goes back with Gavrikov, Schneider goes back down with Robertson, and it makes your defensive, pairings a whole lot better. So Logan Thompson was in that for Washington. The first time around the Rangers faced Charlie Lindgren, who really has had the Rangers number. Other than that playoff series, he wasn't terrible. But I feel like Charlie Lindgren, Ryan Lindgren's brother has done well. Logan Thompson was in that. Logan Thompson has been very, very good this season. Maybe he gave up 4 goals in his last game versus Detroit, but also made 40 saves. This was not a great game by Logan Thompson. Although, I don't think I can't remember many goals. And look, if I'm a Washington fan, my view could be different. Like Sam Ersson, for example, the Flyers. To me, it was notable how he just wasn't good. Thompson, look, you give up 6 goals and you only allowed 20, get 20 saves. No, sorry, not even that. 20 shots against. That's obviously awful. It's a 700 save percentage. So he wasn't good. I guess, is the moral of the story. But nonetheless, the Rangers, and it's crazy, the record continues. When the Rangers score first and when the Rangers get 2 goals or more, they are incredible. I mean, I think the record now maybe sits at 15-2 when they score first, which also speaks to their poor record when they don't score first. It's a big thing for them. Although, look, they ended up trailing in this game, so you take it with a little grain of salt. But as well, the Rangers, again, when they score goals, just 2. I mean, obviously here they score 7, but only 2 goals. They're like 19-2-3 or something in that realm. And again, horrendous, as you'd expect. When you literally don't score, you're not going to win. And when you get 1 goal, Rangers, have not had any 1-0 wins. They've been on the other side of 1-0 losses and things like that. But Rangers first period power play does not come through. However, it does later on. Power play wasn't really great in this game, but again, they didn't come up totally empty-handed. But at 7:49, Ryan Leonard, 4-minute double minor, high-sticking Johnny Brodzinski. I'm telling you, Johnny Brodzinski draws a lot of penalties. He is someone, given the state of this team, he gets healthy scratched more than he should. I think Johnny Brodzinski, it's not in a perfect situation. He would be a guy that's in and out of the lineup. But again, I think he brings you more positives than a lot of other players. And again, and one of those things is he is someone that definitely brings power plays to the team, even if the Rangers aren't really great at it. But the Rangers don't score on the 4-minute power play. And to me, that could have cost them. It really, I mean, that was a spot to take a lead, but not that much after, maybe 3 minutes later, Taylor Raddysh, the former Capital, scores his sixth goal of the season from Brodzinski and Schneider. And he had not scored in a long time. If you remember, he was leading the team with 5 goals, and he was stuck on that. I think they said this out on the broadcast. It had to have been at least 20 games since he scored a goal, I think. Somewhere, probably more than that. And it was, I think it was a 3-on-2 situation, or maybe kind of 3-on-3. Schneider drops it off to Brodzinski, who's able to get it cross ice right to left to Raddysh. Schneider kind of misses the puck in the middle as he was driving towards the net, and Raddysh was able to, get it on his stick and score past Thompson. So you're getting production, from a third line at that point. But what they did, the Rangers have a 1-0 lead going into the second. Again, Rangers didn't play a great first period. We're maybe fortunate to be up 1-0, but they play a lot. Rangers were a lot worse in the second. Now, eventually there's a switch where originally the second line was Cuylle, Trocheck, Perreault, and the third line was Brodzinski, Laba, and Raddysh. They end up switching Brodzinski and Cuylle. We've seen that sort of thing a lot where Cuylle kind of goes from like second and third line. So again, Brodzinski goes to the Trocheck line, Cuylle goes to the Laba line. Just want to make note of that. Now, to start the second period, 22 seconds in, John Carlson scores his 8th goal of the season from Protas and Leonard. And this was one where just too much room for Carlson. Panarin kind of going back slow. Lafrenière maybe not totally great in the defensive zone. I feel like, look, maybe Shesterkin, it's one that maybe he could save, but I just feel like ultimately they almost fell asleep coming in the second period. That's Zibanejad line ultimately. And it's too good of a chance for Carlson. And he scores to make it 1-1. And we know that Igor's been getting beaten blocker side, but that happens there as well. Then at 3:57, Matthew Robertson slashes Ryan Leonard. The Rangers kill that one off, but they were unsuccessful. At 8:29, Carson Soucy holds Nick Dowd. And on this one, 11 seconds into the power play, is Dylan Strome scoring his 7th goal of the season from McMichael and Leonard. And on first glance and on first call, it was an unbelievable save by Igor. One of the best you'll see, where he gets the glove save, and it seemed like he robbed Dylan Strome. But upon further review, it is overturned to a good goal. And for a while there, it was like, wait, this looks totally inconclusive. But then the NHL came up with a screenshot of where it looks as if Igor, where the glove is behind the line. I got to tell you, though, like I would kind of want to see a frame by frame, because in looking at that and on a replay, video wise, it just, that freeze frame, I'm like, where was that? Like, it's weird to me. Look, I believe it. Like, I don't think there's conspiracy theories here, but like even that, I was almost like, how did they come up with that? But anyway, ultimately, good goal for Washington, a power play goal for the Capitals, and it makes it 2-1. But the Rangers, they get a power play of their own. Connor McMichael trips Trocheck at 10:54, and the Rangers are able to score. They win the faceoff. That's so key on these power plays. They win the faceoff, and soon thereafter, it's Will Cuylle in front, scoring his 10th goal of the season from Zibanejad and Trocheck. So simply put, it is Zibanejad, on the right side, finding Will Cuylle in front. Will Cuylle kind of on a knee. I think Cuylle got a stick on it. It may have gone off his skate. Either way, it was totally legal, and it ties it up at 2. However, less than a minute after, Protas scores his 13th goal of the year from Milano and LaPierre to give the Caps the lead again. And bad job by Othman and Shesterkin, where it's a very simple, soft shot by Milano, and Igor just, sort of shifts it over to his right to Protas. Either stop that clean and get a stoppage, or put it into the corner. At the same time, Brendan Othman needs to be on Protas. So he was just kind of flying in the middle and lost his man. So again, blame goes to both of them, in my opinion. And for Shesterkin, that was, of course, you can't blame him for the strong goal. I think the Carlson one, it's a little critical, but again, Igor was pretty good in this game, honestly, made some good saves, but there's always that one, is whatever the reason, it's at least one goal a game that, Igor, you kind of scratch your head. And this one, it wasn't the goal itself, it's what led to the goal. So 3-2 Caps there. And the Capitals really outplayed the Rangers in the second period. Caps outshot the Rangers 15-5. So the Rangers are being outshot 21-10 going to third. And we've seen a lot of this lately. Very lopsided and in the way of the Rangers just not, 10 shots on goal through two. But the third period, they came out to play. Took them a little bit of time to tie it, though, I will say. And another failed power play at 2:23. A very quiet Alex Ovechkin. I think he's been struggling lately as far as, goal scoring and whatnot. But he cross-checks Brennan Othman. But Othman was involved with Trevor Van Riemsdyk at certain points, so I'll give Othman, look, he has not been impressive, and I don't think he's going to be much of a player, unfortunately, but look, he has tried to get, involved and in the mix and stir things up, but the Ranger power play doesn't come through. However, about 4 minutes after that power play expires, it's Taylor Raddysh tying the game, his seventh goal of the season, and the goal is assisted by Cuylle. So again, that kind of line that was formed in the second period gets it done. And it's a play, it's somewhat similar to the first goal. Some of the same characters, but ultimately it's a backhand by Raddysh with Laba kind of crashing to the net, and it goes past Thompson. Kind of a weird, chaotic goal. I think maybe Thompson thought that maybe Laba would deflect it. He didn't. It's Raddish's goal, and it ties it up at 3 with under 12 minutes to go. And the Rangers just kept going from there. And the Zibanejad line, I did not like what they had provided up until this point, but a minute and change after they tie it, it's Lafrenière scoring his 8th goal of the season from Panarin and Morrow. It's actually Lafreniere's 100th career NHL goal, and it was a good job by Panarin to be able to hang on to the puck, circle around at the blue line, and he's able to get it through, and Lafrenière gets a stick on it, and it's a goal. So Panarin has that ability to get the puck through. Not everyone has that knack. We know Adam Fox can do that. It's a simple wrist shot, and Lafrenière gets a piece of it, makes it 4-3. But the Rangers kept on going. And at 13:43, Vincent Trocheck scores his 7th goal of the season from Brodzinski and Pro. Again, another new formed line where Trocheck is able to win the offensive zone draw. Not that cleanly. He got some help from Gabe Perreault, gets it back to Brodzinski, and it's a rebound by Trocheck. Again, just good hard work. That was not a pretty goal at all. That's the thing for Gabe Perreault. Some of the points he's gotten, they've been kind of greasy. And in some ways, it's almost good to see because he's got the talent. But yeah, Trocheck, who has not been very good for a while. He did get that goal against the Flyers, and here, maybe he's getting, something going here. Makes it 5-3 Rangers, and yeah, I just felt like through and through they were, they never really took their foot off the gas. And Spencer Carberry, the Capital head coach, pulls the goalie, and Artemi Panarin scores an empty net goal. 14th goal of the season from Zibanejad and Lafrenière at 17:44. And the Rangers, 25 seconds later, they score again with Thompson back in the net. It's Trocheck. 2nd goal of the game, 8th goal of the season from Cuylle and Raddysh. It was a backhand goal by Trocheck. And at that point, yeah, it's probably one that maybe Thompson wants to have, but, I'd probably a bit checked out at that point, as was the Capitals. And the Rangers win 7-3. A nice win, one that you can feel good about going into the break. And look, the schedule doesn't get much easier, at the Islanders, at Carolina, back at Washington, which I think will be tough given the fact that there's such a short memory here. And then the Winter Classic in Florida against the Panthers. So, I think that these games will be telling. Like, these will not be easy games. Rangers Islanders is the next one. And, Islanders, they're dealing with some injuries themselves. We'll see. There's a chance that Bo Horvat's back, which to me, that's a pretty big deal. Maybe Adam Fox is back. I think, who the hell knows on either side of things. And Sorokin's dealing with an injury, but David Riddick has been doing a really nice job for the Islanders. So I don't think, to me, that's a huge deal one way or the other, in my opinion. And the Islanders really beat the Rangers handily at Madison Square Garden. So if you're the Rangers, you got to come out of break and remember that, and try to return the favor at UBS Arena. Looking forward to going there. It'll be my first time going to UBS Arena, so I'm curious to see what the experience is like. Expecting to see a lot of Ranger fans there. But it's at a point in time where the Rangers, we're not that far away from the halfway point of the season. Rangers have played 39 games. So literally 2 games away from the end of the first half of games, and, big decisions to be made for the Rangers. And look, I still believe that they'll be more in sell. It might not be 100% sell mode, but I think that they'll be more of a seller than a buyer. And certainly, I think they'll be active, if nothing else. But what are they going to do in the interim? Is going to be very interesting and telling as far as how and when, as far as moves made. And I think that you may see some stuff in January. With the Olympic break and for basically almost all of February, I think January could be a pretty busy month as far as league activity. Basically, with the trade deadline, not that much after the Olympics end. So yeah, some interesting stuff coming up here. A little bit of a break, and Rangers get the win, another third period comeback, and a good win at Washington. They score 5 goals in the third, and they beat the Capitals by a final score of 7-3, and they will come out of the holiday break with the game at the Islanders.